I'm Alexander Pezo, and this is Elevate Your Worth. Elevate Your Worth is an empowering podcast and YouTube show. I'll engage with individuals who have wholeheartedly pursued their passion, often against the odds, and have carved out their unique paths to success. Leveraging my diverse background in sports, corporate leadership, entrepreneurship, and design, I look forward to helping individuals tell their story that may never have been heard before. Welcome to another edition of Elevate Your Worth. I am your host, Alexander Pezo, and as we always like to say, where we embrace our personal vibration so that we can help the next generation. I have a very special guest today. My guest, personal friend, confidant, Marquis Keke Hicks. Marquis Keke Hicks, he is the founder, he's the architect behind the Keke for Real Youth Basketball Development and Training Program. Keke, not only does he do that, he's a father, he's a husband, he's a phenomenal friend, but more importantly, he's a damn good teacher of the game of basketball. Keke, how you doing, my brother?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for that introduction, my brother.
Hey, man, it's well deserved. So, listen, before we jump into this, correct me if I'm wrong, Frederick Douglass High School, right?
Yes, sir.
Went to Frederick Douglass High School, big-time player. He played with some big-time guys, Darren Hancock. You guys were one of those teams that played in the Boston Shootout back in the day, which was huge.
Absolutely. Playing against the best talent from the best cities, from the top cities in the country.
Right. Late 80s, early 90s, that was huge, right? That was huge
Yes,
prior to what we now know as AAU basketball, right? That's back when we took a select team from an area and we went and traveled the country and we wanted to put our talent against their talent to see. That was kind of like our litmus test to see where we stood if Keke's jump shot was really as pure as what he thought it was, right?
Yeah, that's what they say, man. But you know,
that's what they say.
I can shoot.
There's a reason why they call you Keke for three, and we're gonna get to that. But first, let's start. Frederick Douglass High School. Tell me some of the universities outside of Oklahoma that you either A, went on an official visit with, or that B, recruited you.
Got you. When I came out of high school, of course, I got recruited by Oklahoma. That's where I went. That was my dream school. So, you know, I had watched them a lot on TV and playing for the national championship when I was still in high school. So that was my dream school. But other schools that recruited me were Clemson recruited me out of the ACC. Nebraska recruited me. They were out of the Big 12. Iowa State recruited me. It was the Big 8 then, but it's the Big 12 now. Iowa State recruited me. University of Georgia, not as much, but University of Georgia recruited me. And I think another SEC school, but I mostly remember Clemson and Nebraska.
Absolutely. So let's go back to Oklahoma, right? That was your dream school, right? 1988, Mookie Blaylock, Stacey King, other players on that team. Of course, great team coached by Billy Tubbs at that time. They run into Danny and the Miracles in 1988. Mark Turgeon's on that team. A personal friend of mine went there named Monty Mathis was on the bench on that team. You had some great players on that team. And of course, Danny led them to the national championship in which they defeated Oklahoma, which I think anybody in Vegas that was a betting man back then, they didn't put their money on Kansas unless they doubled down first on Oklahoma, right?
Right. Yeah, Kansas was not favored in that game, and Oklahoma
they were not favored, and they were not favored in anybody's household that didn't live in Lawrence, Kansas. Let's put it that way. Right. So
yeah, they went on an amazing run.
Yep. So they go on a major run, they win it. You know, you then still say, hey, man, that's where I want to go. That's my dream school. Tell me how Oklahoma, outside of seeing them on TV, became your dream school as a guy who's from Atlanta, right? Where, you know, Georgia, closer school, but more importantly, you had some other good schools in the SEC that were close to you. And were any of those schools, did they try to get in late once they realized, man, this guy can really shoot that basketball? But as my mom used to say back in the day, love the one that loves you, not the one you want to love.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I wanted to go to Oklahoma because I love their style of play. I felt like the way I shoot the ball and the way, my endurance was, and I like to run and shoot. I
Get up and
actually,
down.
yes, I like to get up and down. I always loved Oklahoma and the way they play. I also liked UNLV at that time, but Oklahoma was my favorite school. And so when they started recruiting me, I think I would have had a lot more schools to recruit me, but everybody knew that I wanted to go to Oklahoma. I actually didn't even want to take my other visits, but my high school coach told me it would be smart for me to take all of my visits or whatnot. But a lot of schools backed off because you know how it is sometimes, man, when they be like, well, he going to Oklahoma, so we're not going to waste our time. You know what I
We're
mean?
not gonna
It
waste
was
our time.
right. It was a lot
Yeah.
of that going on.
So you go to Oklahoma. You had some big time games. Had some nice games in the NCAA tournament. Your dream school. You decide, hey, you know what? This might not be the right fit for me. Take me
Right.
through that and how that manifested.
Man, I don't know how many times I haven't told this story many times, but I actually wasn't sure if I wanted to transfer.
Mm.
I had played there my freshman year. Had a couple 16-point games, 13 points at Kansas, 5 assist game. Had some pretty big games there. And so for my sophomore year, I was looking, was caught up in wanting to be a starter. And so I worked my way, trying to be a starter coming back into that second year. And what
Hmm.
happened was I was in the starting lineup the first couple of weeks of practice, but then I knew we had like two All-American JUCO players coming in, and so I had in my mind that by
Who
the
were those
they
two
couldn't.
players?
One of them was Angelo. I think Angelo. Forget Angelo's last name. He's from Alabama.
Okay.
6'5" guard, really good. He was like the best player in JUCO, and everybody was excited about him coming there, and I was not intimidated by that because I was already there, and he was going to be in my second year. He was going to be coming at the second semester. So
Right.
at the first part of the year, I was like, well, once I get out there and do my thing, it's not going to be an issue.
It doesn't
But then
matter.
yes, right. But then after a couple of weeks of practice, we all get ready to go into the games. We all had meetings about where we stood on the team and how much playing time we were going to get. And I was told that I was going to get between 15 to 18 minutes a game, and that could have been good. But I was young, inexperienced about how to deal with things, and so I felt like that wasn't enough for me. I wanted to be a
Right.
starter because I wanted to put my you know put my stamp on things before the All American that they were high on come in. So I was trying to make my mark, and I didn't feel like I could make my mark coming off the bench playing 15 to 18 minutes. And so, like I said, I wasn't sure I wanted to leave, but I contacted some schools
Right.
that had recruited me. And yeah, and I didn't add LSU. LSU was in that recruitment too. So I contacted LSU. They were interested. They were, talking to me. We were talking, but they kept telling me that I had to get a release. And like I said, I didn't
Right.
understand everything. I didn't talk to my coach about it. It was something that I was doing on my own. And so, I was making a mistake. And what happened was before I can get my release, because LSU kept telling me, get your release and then we can go forward. But I
Right.
never did it. And so I kept procrastinating, and then they ended up calling to the school. So I'll never forget it, man. I was coming down the tunnel, getting ready to go to practice. Coach Tubbs walked up to me and he was like, "Hey, Keke, the coach from LSU called me today. He said he'd get back to you on Monday."
So
So
you think Coach Tubbs was being tongue in cheek behind that?
yes, yes, I knew he was because I knew how he was. So I was like, man, God, I done messed up. I done messed up. So
Right.
at that point, I felt like I had to leave.
So that
And
that was
so
Dale Brown at the time, right?
yes, Dale Brown was there. Shaquille O'Neal was there.
Right. So so
It's-
so so in my mindset, coaches back then, and we don't have to really get into it with Coach Tubbs and Coach Brown. They were a lot of mobsters to me, right? When I when
yeah.
I look at when I look at Tubbs, when I look at Dale Brown, when I looked at Raleigh Massimino,
Mhm.
Tark out of UNLV, all those guys reminded me of shorter mobsters, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And every team had what we referred to back then was a bag man. You know, I
Yes.
went to, I started out at the University of Missouri, Norm Stewart, Rich Daly was his guy. He had Sunvold on his staff. But in saying that, I'm sure there was some type of interaction offline between Dale Brown and Tubbs. But that was
Absolutely.
Tubbs' way, tongue in cheek, to let you know, hey, by the way, I know you're trying to leave and go somewhere else. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right. Oh yeah, I knew. I felt like it was over, man. But like I said, I wasn't even sure if I was gonna do it. I was just talking to them to see, man. I should have had somebody. When I look back at it, I should have had somebody guiding me because, I played well at Oklahoma when I played, and they
Right.
did like me, man. I mean, I started out not getting much time. Then I earned my way to getting on the floor. Then after getting on the floor, I played some good games. I earned more time. It could have went well, man. But like I said, I was young. I didn't really know any better. And so, when I was talking to other schools, man, I know they end up talking. And I think what happened was because there were other schools that were interested, everybody stopped calling me.
Right.
So I feel like they were like what you just said. They talked, man, and I was at home for a while with nothing, man. But one of the assistant coaches on the staff, he called up coach at
Before you
Coastal
get to
Carolina.
that, right? Because that's something we refer to as the blacklist, right?
Yes.
Hey, he's a good kid, but dot,
Hmm.
dot, 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 dot. And by the
Right.
time they get finished with all the dots, they forget that you were a good kid,
Right.
right?
Right.
And honestly, they're burying the lead by saying you a good kid because they're going to assassinate you and bury you. They're not going to canonize you with all the things they say after the dot because it's
Right.
almost like a relationship. If I can't have you, nobody else can,
Right.
right? You bring up a great point, man, because when I left Missouri, had I had the right mentor in my life at that time,
Hmm.
my career would have gone much different. The beautiful
Right.
thing is, you and I are two guys that we don't live in the past because there's an old
Right.
saying: it's hard to move forward when you're constantly looking in the rearview mirror, right?
Absolutely.
But
Yes.
here's where I'm going with this, Keke. What you spoke to was having a mentor, right? And
Right.
having somebody that could kind of guide you.
Hmm.
But look at it from this perspective. Look at all the lives you've been able to impact because you're being that mentor to them that you didn't have back then.
Absolutely.
Because back
Yes.
then we had coaches that were solid coaches, but they were worried about what was next in their program, not what had left their program. Right.
Right.
And
Right.
some of them didn't even know how to navigate at that level.
Right.
They were trying to get to that level. So they were going to do whatever they could to get to that level. They weren't
Hmm.
necessarily focused on helping somebody that had left their program get to what was next for them.
Right.
I say
Right.
this
Yeah,
as to say
man.
this, right? When I
Hmm.
think about, Keke for 3 Youth Basketball Academy, right? Which I love.
Hmm.
I've been a fan from day one, man.
Hmm.
When I look at your mission, the academy aims to provide a supportive environment where young players can enhance their basketball abilities, learn teamwork, and develop leadership skills.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
phenomenal, man. That's phenomenal.
Yes.
So
Appreciate
I,
it, bro.
I want you to, before we go to Coastal Carolina, because when we go to Coastal Carolina, you set it on fire. Almost
Yes.
1,700 career points, second or third leading scorer, I think, at this point in time, still in the school's history, correct?
Yes.
Right. And that's not counting what you did at Oklahoma. For those that are
Right.
listening,
Right.
he didn't bring those points with him. He left those behind at Oklahoma, which is probably what, another 200 or 300 points.
Yes. Yeah. My freshman year, I averaged like 5 points a game, but I had quite a few double figure games. Some games, how you get in at the end, it'll kill those stats.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, look, that's coach. Let me show you for the next game, so you can put me in the game early next game, right?
right.
So,
Right.
so you're looking at another 200 plus points. So you're almost a 1,900, almost 2,000 point score in totality, right?
Right. Right.
So they try. Listen, you can't, you can't stop what God has in store for you.
Absolutely.
And I say that as to say that the the blessing that they tried to stymie with some of those other schools.
Hmm.
Now, let's talk a little bit about Coastal Carolina, and then we're going to go into what you've morphed into now with Keke for real and the basketball academy. So
Gotcha.
you get the Coastal Carolina, right? Take
Yes.
me from there.
Okay. Well, first let me tell you how I end up there. So I came home. Man, I was just in a zone, man. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just at home. And so Coastal kept calling me because I kept thinking I was going to be able to get into some of the schools at the level that had recruited me. And
Yep.
Coastal, although Coastal was Division 1, it was small Division 1. You get what
Right.
I'm saying? So,
I get
you
it.
know, I was trying to go back to another Power 5 school because that was my level, having been a top 50 high school player.
Right.
And so I couldn't get no traction, man. So I was just kind of at home, and Coastal coach called me, kept calling. I was procrastinating, and so one time he called me he said, "This is my last time calling you." He just gave it to me, and I thank him for it today, man. I tell him this. I've told him this a couple times. Coach Russ Bergman. He called
Yep.
me. He said, "Look, man, you're gonna end up at home, not in school, not anywhere. You know what I mean? You need to be in school. You need to
Because you're
come
waiting
on
on
up
something
here."
bigger.
Right. He said, "You need to come on up here. I'm gonna make sure you get up here. You need to let me know that if you're gonna come or not." And so I was like, "Yeah, okay." So he was right. He hit me in the chest with it. Like, he
He was
spoke real
real.
to me. Yes, he
Yeah.
kept it real with me. And I appreciate that from him to this day. I appreciate it because I don't really know how it would have went, man. I didn't, have the proper guidance that I needed. My parents, they loved me, but they didn't understand. I was the first in my family to
Most of
be in
us are
this
first
situation.
generation college, not just
Yes.
college athletes, but college student athletes.
Yes, man. I was the first
Right?
one. So, yeah. So I finally, went up there, man, and then he took me through the gym, man, and I saw the gym coming from Lloyd Noble, 8 to 10,000 people, and I go in this high school looking gym,
Right.
and man, I I'll never forget it, man. I went in the bathroom, man. I ain't even gonna lie. I was just keeping a whole buck with you, man. I bust out crying, man.
Right. I
Man, I was so
love it,
hurt,
man.
man.
Yeah.
I was
But you
like,
know what?
hmm.
But those tears, honestly, man, turned into tears of joy because when people hear
Yes,
your story and where Coastal Carolina got you to,
yes.
imagine how it would have gone had you gone somewhere and ended up at a Power 5 on
Hmm.
someone's bench, not because you lack the ability, but
Yeah.
because you lack the validation from your previous coach.
Right, right. Yeah, man. So that was hard. That was tough, man. But then once, I was there for a while, moving around, met some of the guys. They were cool. Started practicing with the team, started having fun. I was, the big person on campus around the city, Myrtle Beach and Conway. People knew who I was. It kind of, it started to feel okay. And then we got some
Conway,
players.
South Carolina, right?
Yes, man. And
Wow.
so whereas I had been a freshman and the young guy and the new person at Oklahoma and trying to make my way, came to Coastal, and although we had another star player, Tony Duncan, who had been there, I kind of felt like the big person, man. So it gave me a sense of I'm important and that, this team needs me. And I'm gonna make sure that we get to the NCAA tournament, because we're gonna win
Right.
because we got some players here and we got some players recruited and and I can dominate. And so that's kind of what happened. I had a great first year there in practice. Man, I used to get so bad in practice, man. There's no disrespect to my teammates because I talk to a lot of these guys, still love them. Man, I used to dominate so bad in practice. Coaches used to pull me to the side and say, "Don't shoot no more the rest of the practice."
Yeah. Pause. Calm down, young fella. Yeah. Calm down.
Like, just
We'll need
pass
it.
the ball, don't shoot.
Right. Right.
So
Wow. Pass the ball, don't shoot.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so you sit
Like,
out that year because this was old school. It wasn't no portal where you could transfer and play immediately, right? So you had to sit out the
right.
year, right?
Yeah, I just sat out and I just practiced, and I was able to play because I had come there in January in the second semester, so I wasn't able to play that next year until after the first semester. I think
After Christmas break.
yes, and I played my first game. We were in Hawaii, and so whenever 12 o'clock midnight here, I was able to play the second half of the game that we were playing out in
Wow.
Hawaii, man, and
And who
it
was that
was
against?
that was against Hawaii. It was no. I take that back. We played Hawaii in the championship. We played, I think it was Northeast Louisiana at that time.
They used to do the Rainbow Classic out there.
Yes, that's exactly what it was, the Rainbow Classic.
Yeah, they
That
used to
was
do the Rainbow Classic out there. Yeah.
yes, hosted by the University of Hawaii, man. And that's one of the best moments I ever had in my college career because it was the first time I played since I had been at Oklahoma. And
Right.
man, just hearing the band and me being able to play and help my teammates and get buckets and help us
Right.
win, man. It was just, I remember being on the sideline, Pezo, man, and you could hear the band coach was talking. I just screamed out, man, I love this shit. I was excited, man. That was a fun time, man.
Right, right. I love it, man. So you go there, you score almost 1,700 points. You like I said, school's second time leading scorer behind Duncan, right?
Third.
Okay. So you do that, and then it's like the floodgates open up, right? Like every
Yes.
kid. So now we got to go to phase 2. Phase 1 was I went big time D1 Power 5. Something happened behind the scenes we can't really speak to, but we can kind of guess what may have taken place. So you end up at Coastal, divine intervention. God places you where you not where you want to be, but where you need to be.
That's right.
You have a great career. So now we go to what's next. You're listening to the Elevate Your Worth podcast. Alexander Pezo, Keke Hicks. Till the next time, take care. To catch part 2 of this episode, subscribe and like the Elevate Your Worth podcast channel. You can also tune in on Spotify and Apple Podcast.